What is up, Testosterone Nation? You are locked and loaded, tuned in to another episode of Testosterone Fantasy Sports, right here on your local cable access provider. It's Jeff and Jesse back in the house. Week 3, Jeff. I can't be any more excited for this show than I am right now.
Yeah, it was a really crazy week 2 in the NFL. So many different upsets. I mean, we saw a wild and wacky game, Cincinnati at Cleveland. Oh my goodness gracious, Jamal Lewis getting his thing on. It was wild,
no kidding.
man.
And so many big upsets in the week that was week number 2 in the NFL. It's almost like we told you on last week's show not to panic. Right. We need to tell the junkies out there, don't panic, because there's a lot of trends that are supposedly developing right now, and deciphering these things can be kind of difficult right now, man. What do you make of the league right now through 2 weeks?
And more than ever, it's impossible to tell what's going to happen. I mean, all of a sudden, we've got Houston on a major tear. They took down the Carolina Panthers, and they did it in surprisingly dominating style. I was just amazed by that. You know, a few other things that are happening. What's going on with the Rams? I mean, they just seem to have no heart and soul, no life right now. And in fact, Steven Jackson had to be restrained after that game. He went on a rant and a rave. Some of us are prone to do that, but he had to be restrained from going after Scott Linehan.
Yeah, wild things.
It's going crazy.
Wild things abounding. I mean, you're starting to hear rumors already of a possible Donovan McNabb benching in Philadelphia. They're off to an 0-2 start. The Redskins are atop of that division with Dallas. So a wild and wacky start to the season. A wild start for fantasy owners as well. That's why you're tuning into the best fantasy prognostication show on television. It's Testosterone Fantasy Sports. We're happy to have the junkies out there join us for our Week 3 show.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't be more happier. You guys are the third member of Testosterone. Well, make that fourth. Sorry, Yeasty. Yeasty will be in the house a little bit later on. We're going to start off with the Vikings right now. And then with the fantasy portion of the show, I'm going to have to check out, aside from the fantasy field, I got a coaching responsibility in the youth football field, and I can't wait to go on and help the Maple Grove Gators take out the Patriots tonight. So go Gators. We're going to shut them down on defense.
Yes, Jeff's boy is playing in a football game tonight. He's strapping on the helmet, strapping on the pads. Jeff living vicariously through his son.
That's right, of course.
Like I'll be doing here in a couple years once my boys are old enough. It's definitely that time of year, and it's football. And when we talk about football in this land, Jeff, it all starts right here with our favorite team, the Purple. A very disheartening loss in week 2. I came on here on this show at the beginning of the preseason, as well as again last week, predicting a hot start for our squad. And last week, Jeff, if a 52-yard field goal doesn't glance off of the upright, we're 2-0. But now that didn't happen. Tarveris gets injured in the overtime. We lose to the Lions 20-17 in Detroit. And now really there are questions abounding all over the place with our favorite team.
Yeah, personally, I'm sad, you know, Viking faithful out there. And the reason is because, in my opinion, our team is so good. Our defense is so good that I really feel like we could contend for the Super Bowl. They're so good. 3 touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. That's, you know, game changing. Our offensive line, in my opinion, is superb. I know we haven't been getting the disciplined type of play out of them that we want to, but still, they're excellent at what they do. Our issue is with quarterback and wide receiver, 2 positions that you have to be at least average to contend and to compete. And right now, it just seems like Tarveris is developing. And, you know, for his 5th offensive start as a starting quarterback in the NFL, you know, he's doing as good as a guy should in his position, I suppose. But with the fact that the rest of our team could push us into a division title, much less a nice run in the playoffs, it makes me just feel like, where are we going?
Yeah, exactly, Jeff. And I mean, when we talked about our squad at the end of last season and also heading into this season, I was very vocal about my wishes to see us bring in a veteran quarterback. I mean, when you're going into preseason, you want to have a young guy like Tarveris. You want to have him alongside of a strong veteran presence throughout training camp so he can see how a pro really works throughout training camp. I mean, this guy is young. He's supposedly our future. We spent a high draft pick on him a couple years back, so I'm not ready to give up hope, but it definitely frustrates me that the leadership of our franchise from the top down didn't see that this was more of a potential bugaboo. I mean, all of the national media people were saying the Vikings quarterback position is weak, and now here we go. Tarveris leads the league. There's no one in the league with more interceptions than Tarveris Jackson, and our worst fears are about to be foretold on the field. Brooks Bollinger could start now, man. That's painful.
There's also some rumor about Kelly Holcomb. That's kind of what we're hoping for. Bollinger looked pretty bad in the preseason. All the times we saw him in training camp, everything he was doing seemed really sketchy. And I just, I suppose I can understand, if they're going to bring a quarterback like Tarveris in, he really reminds me of Jason Campbell from the Washington Redskins. He's a little bit on the hot seat too. He was a first-round pick by the Redskins. But what Joe Gibbs is doing, at least, is putting a good receiving core around him. They have Santana Moss as a wide receiver. They have Chris Cooley, an excellent tight end. And then they've got a nice few guys who would be our number one, Antoine Randall L. and Brandon Lloyd. Those guys platoon the number two. So you're giving Campbell in that situation some targets to work with. Guys who can catch the ball and can do well.
And Jeff, in that scenario, they also have Mark Brunell, a player on their squad who's been to several Pro Bowls, who was starting at one point in time on the same Washington Redskins team. So he's now in the youngsters' ear, and really last week on Monday night, you were starting to see the dividends being paid by the way the Washington Redskins have kind of held Jason Campbell back a little bit, and now that's starting to pay some dividends. I'm worried that because of the poor wide receiver play and the problems that Tarveris is having now, I really don't want to see his confidence go south because, Jeff, at the end of that game the other day, our team got the ball back with less than a minute. He brought us down the field, got us in a spot where we could set up to at least have a try for a winning kick. It wasn't until overtime that he got injured, and I just got to wonder if that 52-yard field goal doesn't glance off the upright, if things in Viking land aren't looking a lot better with a 2-0 start.
Yeah, we would all be more positive, that's for certain. Whether or not it would all be clouded by the truth, I'm not 100% sure. It just seems like we passed on too many good players to give our team a good chance. And our defense is superb, but we're not the youngest defense in the league. And it just feels like we're kind of wasting Big Pat's time a little bit, and Antoine, and those guys are popping right now. So if we wouldn't have passed on, a guy like Jeff Garcia, or, making the trade for Matt Schaub like we discussed in the past, even a David Carr, on our team right now, to help even against injuries and other things of the like. It would just be so much better for our team when wins are the most important thing in the NFL.
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore with you, Jeff. But as we try our best to put last week in the past and focus on this next week, we are traveling to a team that's very beatable right now. 0-2 Kansas City has definitely got some problems on the offensive side of the ball. Their quarterback position is definitely up in the air. I mean, Damon Heward is their starter, correct?
Right, yeah. And we saw Brody Croyle a little bit last week. And this is a team, what's interesting about this game is these two teams see each other a lot in the preseason because the Chiefs have their camp over at River Falls. And so they scrimmage. And at the first scrimmage that they had, there was a player on the Chiefs who was calling our offensive line soft. And now there have been just enough questions in the media that Bryant McKinney and Steve Hutchinson should be a little bit pissed off right now and want to go down there and show those guys who's the man on the offensive line.
Yeah, and that's really what we need to see is some dominating offensive line play. Last week, Adrian Peterson was supposed to be a huge play for fantasy players. The Lions are soft against the run. Hey, the Chiefs are soft against the run too. We really, especially if Bollinger is our starter, we really need to establish the run early and often in this game, establish a tempo for our offense on the offensive side of the ball. And on the defensive side of the ball, we have to be just as opportunistic as we've been to this point. As you said, 3 touchdowns on the defensive side of the ball. And we really need to get some pressure on the quarterback because the only way our squad is going to win is if we can keep the Chiefs under 20 points.
Yeah, right. Well, I definitely think it's going to be a low-scoring game. One real bright spot in my mind about our team has been the play of our special teams. I think has been superb. They've been returning the ball real well. I like what Andre Allison has brought to the table.
Nice return last week.
For our special teams unit, and Muweldi's always solid back there.
Right.
So I think that's excellent, and if our special teams or our defense can come up with that big play, it just seems like our defense is our best offense.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's going to be kind of what it's going to take, I think.
Well, you should go on to Jeff's writers page right now on testosteronesports.com. Just click on the little picture of Jeff. There's a wonderfully written article there where he's getting some of his frustrations out about
I had to vent
about the purple because last week's game was damn frustrating.
Man, I'm telling you that I have a fantasy league that I have Longwell as my kicker, and I lost by 2. So that kick goes in, and I win.
Yeah.
So I was down.
And when you saw the kick come off of his foot, it looked true right away,
right.
and then it kind of faded, and at the last possible moment, you knew that he had missed it when it doinked off the upright.
Do you think there's a chance that throughout, the first part of his career, the entire time, Ryan Longwell's always just naturally adjusted for the wind? And now he's in a dome, so he is just off because he's got that natural adjustment for the wind.
Well, I got to be honest, man. At the end of that game, I found myself questioning the fact that an ex-Packer was on the field to take our winning kick, but I really had to take a couple deep breaths about it and remember that Darren Sharper is playing with his balls out effort just every single week and dominating for us in the defensive secondary. So I can't question Longwell's heart because we're getting some nice run out of some other ex-Packers, but when he missed that kick, I was like, damn it, ex-Packer as our kicker, what's that all about?
Right. Well, and heart is not one of the problems with our team. It doesn't seem like it. We seem to play. We're very impassioned, and you like to see that, pride-filled and emotion-packed, effort by our offensive line and the defense, especially the defense.
Here's an interesting stat for you that I'm just going to throw out there to let everyone out there kind of see what's happening behind the scenes. Only 2 teams have given up more yards than the Vikings defense, but only 2 teams have given up fewer points. So we've had some very key turnovers deep in our own end zone. I've seen our defense come up with big play after big play when we really need it the most. And I guess what I'm afraid of, Jeff, is that if our offense doesn't round into shape, maybe the extra intensity and heart that we've been playing with on the defensive side of the ball might start to slip if we're, on a 5 or 6 or 7 game losing streak. And this thing could really get ugly.
Well,
so I think we've got to step up right now.
And the other thing about it is if our offense can't produce, then our defense is going to be on the field longer, and that's going to up the potential for bad injury.
Right.
And once we start, then we're going to have some big issues. And, we don't want our defense to turn into an offensive sieve like the Giants.
Yes.
So another thing about our guys is, we have yet to allow a rushing touchdown.
Right.
So that's a real positive thing. And here comes the Chiefs, and all they have is Larry. So we really do match up against the Chiefs very, very well. Our linebackers are playing good, and that bodes well against Tony Gonzalez. So realistically, I think the Chiefs won't put up more than 13.
Yeah, I agree. Last week on our website, I wrote a little article called About to Drop, and I featured Larry Johnson as my player in there, who I think his value is in a free fall right now. I even advise fantasy junkies out there to bench Larry Johnson in last week's matchup. Jeff, the Vikes bring the D on the ground game too. What do you think about LJ here? Should we think about benching him again?
Well, LJ is the kind of guy who will get it going in the passing game, and if they're smart, they're going to be, figuring out ways to get him loose around the outside, so that Heward can hit him. I mean, they've got some sketchy quarterback play, so the best thing, in my opinion, is a good tight end and a good back who catches the ball out of the backfield. If they can get that going, it can be a long day for us down in Arrowhead. And Arrowhead's a pretty tough place to play, let's face it.
Yeah, it is a very tough place to play. I'm going to let this purple blood course through my veins a little bit longer. I'm going to believe that we can muster the defensive prowess that we've exhibited through the first 2 weeks. I'm going to believe that we can get some solid push up front with our offensive line, get a little bit of a run game going, and I'm sure hoping that we can win it in a close one, a low-scoring affair. Not a lot of fantasy points here, but hopefully a second win for the Purple
it'd be great
weekend.
to see some shots down the field, even just a couple shots down the field to loosen things up for our running game. And having Chester back would be nice too.
And please, please, please start Kelly Holcomb. I mean, realistically.
If it's Kelly or Brooks Bollinger, I mean, you can't think they could mess that up, dude.
You got to start Kelly Holcomb. This guy's put up 400 yards in a playoff game before when he played for the Browns. So he's at least a seasoned NFL veteran. He knows this kick-ass offense inside and out from the times that that he spent with our head coach back when they were in Philadelphia together. So I think it's got to be Holcomb or bust if it's not Tarveris this year.
If Holcomb or bust is the best it is for us, man. Oh, might want to buy a case for the game.
No kidding. Well, we're going to be back right after this message. We're going to start to break down all the fantasy matchups. We appreciate you tuning in this week. Testosterone Fantasy Sports.
Yeasty in the house.
Yeasty will be back in just a minute, and we will break down Week 3 Intensified.